As with most applications these days, you have some kind of tools panel or palette, and Illustrator is no different. Our tool panel lives over here by default on the left-hand side of the screen, and of course you can just tear it off by grabbing the gray bar and put it where you want. I can even redock it somewhere else by clicking on the bar and moving it until I see a blue line appear. When I see that blue line, I let go, and the tools live there now. I tear it off again, and now these guys are both attached. In the case of a super panel like this, you click on the little serrated line here. I can tear that off and tear the tools off as well. If you go too far and you mess up, just simply go back to the name of your workspace and click on it, and everything goes back to normal. You really can't mess up too badly. Okay, so let's take a look at the most commonly used tools inside of Illustrator. The first are the two arrows. The black arrow is called the selection tool. With the selection tool, you can literally click on things and move them around, resize them, rotate them, and so on. Unlike the selection tool, we have a white arrow called the direct selection tool. This tool helps us to manipulate the points of an object. I'll give you a quick example. I'll grab the black arrow. First of all, I'll give this guy a color. And with this arrow, I can click on the middle of my shape or object and move it around. With the white arrow, I can click on the very edge here until I see a little point light up like so. And I can click and I can manipulate the components or the points of this object. This tool does not do that. So once again, this guy is really for moving things around or rotating them, stuff like this. So you can put your cursor at the end or the tip of a corner, rotate, put it in the sides here on the handles, and you can scale as well. We have a lasso tool which helps you to select things, but of course you can do the same thing with this tool. All right, the difference is, of course, you can grab points with this tool. So you can select these 2 points with the lasso, and you can then move them around with the white arrow. Typically, I don't even use this tool because I can do the same thing with the white arrow. I simply draw a boundary and I can click and move it where I want. So I don't use this lasso tool at all, not really. The pen tool allows us to create vector paths, and I will talk about how to use this elsewhere in the tutorial. The type tool, of course, we can write type. We have some line tools where we can create straight lines, and we can create things like arcs. Okay, currently we can't see them because we have no stroke on them. So now you can see the arc. We have some polygon tools and shapes in here, so we can create things like rectangles, rounded rectangles, ellipses, stars, and flares. We have a paintbrush tool, which is just a brush tool, pencil, and the blob brush. The blob brush is different from the paintbrush, and I'll talk about that in specifics later on in the tutorial as well. So definitely check that out. I think you'll like the blob brush. It's one of my favorites. We have an eraser, which gives us the ability to erase inside of our objects, as you can see there. We have our rotate tool, which is pretty much the same as clicking with the black arrow and moving to one of the corners here until you see the double arrow. So I don't really use the rotate tool too much unless I need to move a pivot point. We have a scale tool, and once again I scale with this guy as well. We also have some new tools, and we have a width tool that you can use to click and add width to things. We'll talk about that later on. We have the ability to work with this great new tool in Illustrator, the Shape Builder, which is awesome. It allows you to combine shapes together to create symbols. We have a perspective grid tool, and I'll go ahead and click on it to show you real fast what it does. It gives you the ability to quickly work in perspective. We have a mesh tool, which allows us to make organic gradients. Very, very cool, so check that out. We have the gradient tool, which works like this tool, but not in such an organic fashion. We have our eyedropper tool, which allows us to sample colors. So I can sample a color from one thing and put it in another. So here's white, now it's white in there, and it's blue in there. It happens on a selected object, as you can see. We have this object selected. So when I click on white area, it fills with white. When I click on blue, it fills with blue. We also have some other tools in here, such as a graph tool. I'll talk about how to make a graph later on. We have a magnifying glass, which allows you to zoom on things. I'll double click on the magnifying to zoom back out. And I'll double click on the hand tool to go back to a view which shows everything. Likewise, when you want to use the hand tool, hit the space bar. The space bar allows you to keep whatever tool you have selected, turn it off temporarily when you hit the space bar, and when you let go of space bar, your other tool comes back. We have some tools that allow you to work with web graphics. This is our slice tool and our slice select tool. So when you want to take a solid piece of artwork and cut it up to make it a navigational system, for example, these are the tools that you want to use. We also have our foreground swatch, or our fill color, and our stroke color. The fill is the inside, the stroke is the outside. We have our ability to change from our color to our gradient to getting rid of a color or fill or whatever we have there. So once again, this is selected. I'll click here and the color is gone. We have our draw modes, which are new to Illustrator. So we can draw normally, we can draw behind objects, and we can draw inside objects. And don't worry, I will definitely cover that as well. And we also have the ability to change the screen mode. It's like hitting F on your keyboard, and it simply changes the configuration of your screen. So that is a quick look at the tools. And many of them have little arrows next to them like so. When you click on those, they open up to reveal other tools. So as you can see, there's a lot of tools in here. So of course we couldn't cover them all in this lesson, but I will definitely talk about a lot of them in this tutorial. For example, in the type tool, I'll talk about type on a path, and in the pen tool, we'll talk about how to use all these tools inside of here and so on.